Welcome to Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today on All Home Care Matters, we are excited to welcome Josh Crisp to the show. Josh is a senior living executive who has over 14 years in the development, construction, and management of senior living across the Southeast. And if that's not impressive enough, Josh is also the founder and CEO of Solinity, a senior living development and management company that is helping to reshape the industry to help better meet the needs of the aging population and to create intergenerational communities. When we were doing our research on Josh for this interview, it became quickly evident that he has a passion and deep desire to serve his community and our aging population. In fact, he is also an active voice in the state legislature and serves as the chairman of the Assisted Living Standing Committee and was appointed by the governor of Tennessee, Bill Haslam, to the board for licensing health care facilities in 2014, where the role of the board provides regulatory authority over all licensed healthcare facilities in the state of Tennessee. Josh's impressive resume and civic involvement is vast and impressive, and one of the many impressive accomplishments that we especially appreciate is Josh is also the co-founder of Pedal for Alzheimer's, a nonprofit organization that is committed to raising awareness and funds for Alzheimer's disease research by organizing and hosting cycling events. So now we would like to welcome Josh to All Home Care Matters. Welcome, Josh.
Well, thank you, Lance. It's an honor to be with you today.
Thank you. So, Josh, I want to start this interview out by learning a little bit about what got you into this field. You obviously have a deep passion and desire to help others, and especially the aging population. What was it that first gave you that desire to get into this industry?
Well, it's a great question. I get asked that a lot, and I wish I could say it was very intentional that I sought out senior care and housing, but it honestly was not on my radar. I was actually selling real estate, working my way through college, and I just felt something missing. Like I wasn't really doing what I was put here on this earth to do, and was looking for something that felt a little more mission and people oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, an entrepreneur that was starting up a senior care community out of Houston contacted me with mutual friends and asked me if I'd ever thought about it. And, a few months later, I had the opportunity to jump in with a new company, a startup, and really serve in a marketing capacity and just learn. And I remember for my training program, I lived for a few months in a senior living community and got to work about every position you could imagine. And contrary to what I thought, initially, I just kind of fell in love with it. I fell in love with the team members and their passion. I fell in love with the residents and their families, and I've never looked back since.
Nice. So I've read that you have a holistic approach towards aging care. What is that approach, and how do you apply it to these communities for the elderly?
Yeah, well, for me, it may be oversimplified because I'm a fairly simple person. I think I think a human is made up of multiple parts, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and you think of the body, the soul, the spirit, that, and we often hear in our industry and around the industry and caring for older people a lot of mission around supporting and care services physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Sure.
And I do really believe that. And how I have applied that in the communities is in really the programs that we develop is trying to look at each person and each program as a human made up of multiple relational parts outside of just their physical. And we equally focus on the team members, because it really dawned on me a few years into my career that if we are just focused on the end product, or that program that is geared around that senior, that aging adult, but we don't put an equal emphasis on the human that is providing that care, we kind of miss our opportunity, maybe
Sure.
to not fully achieve it. So anything that we're doing, we're kind of equally as focused on the care giver as we are the one that's providing the care.
Sure. It's interesting. So how would you say senior living complements or works with home care and home health care?
Well, I love talking about this because even though I'm in senior living, which I think we could probably have a long discussion on what is senior living, because
Sure.
it's very vague depending on who you talk to, which makes navigating it difficult for the
Right.
consumer. But I personally believe for an older person, for a human, home is where they call home.
Right.
And that whether that's the place they've lived their entire lives, whether that's an apartment they've downsized to, or whether that's a licensed community like an assisted living or a memory care. I do know that not everyone is the same.
Right.
Not everyone has the same preferences. Not everyone has the same needs. Not everyone has the same financial wherewithal. And so there's a place for diversity of unique products and services to meet the ever-changing and diverse needs of the population that's aging.
Right.
And so for me, if I just look at a narrow lens and say senior living communities, independent assisted, and memory care communities that we've developed, we've always had a fantastic partnership with a variety of medical and non-medical home-based care organizations. And whether that is them coming in and helping to support things that our community could not deliver adequately or as well as that home care was trained to provide, or whether it was us partnering with agencies that needed other supportive services like meal plans or other recreational activities that maybe someone in a private residence, while they were receiving great home care, maybe they weren't able to get as much social stimulation. So how could we do something in partnership with that home-based organization? So those are just a couple of the things, but I love the topic because I think oftentimes we think it's an either or. We've got to do either or, but there, senior care, congregate care is not right for everyone.
Right.
And then the same, staying in a home until the day that you die is not right for everyone. So I think it's perfect that we can blend the two together.
So Solinity looks at intergenerational senior living. How would you describe that to somebody who doesn't know what you mean by that?
Well, I look at it at its most simplified point as a couple of different aspects when we're planning it.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the physical plant, how do we design that community, big or small, to allow people to live and work together in an environment that is not only geared for the environment of an aging person, but that someone, even a younger generation, would enjoy to live or work. So the physical design, and there's a lot of discussion and obviously planning that goes into that. But then the other aspect is programmatically. What are we doing to bring generations together?
Right.
I can't tell you how many 93-year-old females have come into communities. They love it. They tour, they taste, they smell. And then the last thing they say on their way out the door from the tour is, when I get older and just want to be around old people, this is where I will live.
Sure.
And so the magic that I have seen in the chemistry and the emotional stimulation that occurs when old and young and generations are brought together is something that's kind of hard to put your hands around and just capture into a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a chemistry that happens. And so in everything that we're doing, from a physical plant to programmatically, we're trying to create engagements that give people an experience that stimulates the mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. And, I think it's good for the younger generations as well to spend time with the older generation. I think, and I've seen that myself with a lot of things that we're involved with. And when they take the time to slow down for a little bit and to appreciate, some of the lessons and experiences that older generations can share with them, it's a really powerful moment because they're witnessing it almost like history firsthand. And then the older generation, they appreciate being able to share some of those stories, and it almost reinvigorates them as well. It's a wonderful thing.
It really is. And I kind of equate this analogy when, you know, when we look back on the greatest generation at the things they lived through, sometimes it's through a black and white lens because
Right.
that was all that was available for us to look back to, but they lived it in color.
Sure.
So get the color version of that straight from the source. And I know my kids, I have 3 that have visited our communities and shared with stories of strangers. And it's amazing how things start to tick that maybe they read in a history book that didn't
Right.
really make sense until they hear it from somebody that lived through it. So
Yeah.
it's really awesome.
Yeah, it is. What are some ways that you suggest for families, either for themselves or for their loved ones, when they're looking to navigate long-term care solutions?
It's one of the most challenging things, I think, for families. And it's one of the most challenging things for us as providers to help with because it is confusing and it's not simple and everyone's needs are different. So I think for me, it's finding a resource, whether that's a person, an agency, that you can trust
Yeah.
nowadays. Kind of the good and the bad. It's a two-edged sword with the aging population, and everyone's talking about the tsunami. There's so much technology, and there's so many community types, and there's so many agencies out there vying for that resident or that
Right.
consumer decision. And so there's a lot of sales that
Right.
are centered around that. So it's really important that we find a resource that the family can trust to navigate it because again, it's not a one size fits all approach. And so there are agencies out there locally and some national agencies that consumers can partner with. Finding a service provider. I think it's really important for the families to have the expectation of when they go in that the person is going to be listening more than they're talking. I think it's always, to me, it's alarming, and we train our teams that if it feels like a sales process, then it probably is a sales process. And there's obviously business functions that happen, and that's okay.
Right.
But there should be an attention to listening to what the resident or the consumer, the client's needs are. What does the older adult truly need?
Right.
And so I think that's the trust is the big thing. And I think that just takes a little time in relationship.
Well, and I'm glad to hear you say that because I know in the field that we're in the home care field, we service families that are in assisted living, even in the nursing homes and hospitals, because once their loved one gets in there, sometimes what they thought they were going to be getting, they're not going to be. Just a quick story. We have a lady who recently her children had sold her home and they had put her into an assisted living facility because the facility had really kind of promised the stars and the moon. And we had advised her, we said, our assessment, she's not going to be a good fit for assisted living. All they heard was assisted living and that there's 24-hour nursing care. Within 30 days, the family's getting a letter from the facility saying that their mother either needs to move out or they would have to hire an outside professional company to come in and take care of her around the clock. And the family they felt like their trust had been broken with this facility because they sold their childhood home to pay for this and to fund their mom's, aging in place at this facility. And, they, it was a tough decision. There was a lot went into that. And just within a couple of weeks, they're already being told their mom's not a good candidate or a good fit to meet their living standards. And sadly, we hear things like that with other home care companies that promise certain things or they'll do this and that. And I just think in general, like you're saying, it's yes, they're consumers and yes, it's business, but it's also people you're working with and their families and their trust. And to gain their trust sometimes takes a while because you have to overcome some of the distrust that has accumulated or experiences that they've had. So, it's a wonderful philosophy or an approach that you guys take with Solinity because it is more than just, signing people up and moving them in. It's about, actually a personable one-on-one experience for each person because it isn't a one size fits all.
You're exactly right. And one key word that we teach all of our team members, anyone that's going to answer the phone for that first time, is our job is to be a resource for that family. Selfishly, we would love nothing more for everyone to come live with us.
Sure.
But realize we can't meet everyone's needs, but if we can be a trusted voice to talk someone through it and help them navigate and then send them to the appropriate place when and if they need us, we know they will be back. And so that's what we really focus on.
Yes, that's a wonderful way to focus too. So Josh, how does your mindset for health and fitness translate into your work and vision for the aging population?
Well, I think fitness, again, in all areas, right, of our spiritual well-being, our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, naturally, the more physically healthy that we are, it impacts every other part of us and how we interact with people. So obviously, I have seen that firsthand in aging adults and caring for them, and even with my own family.
Sure.
Now into my 40s, I have kind of a renewed effort to keep myself physically fit. But again, we believe that this is not only very impactful for the residents, but for the team members. And we do it. We say it like this. We say, you know what? As long as you're breathing on this earth, as long as you have life, it doesn't matter your frailty or your disability. You have a specific purpose. So live that purpose to the best of your ability and get up every morning and live it out. And what we see is when people start turning their attention on being well and then seeing how they can also be well enough to help others in some capacity and to continue to give, we see the depression start going down. We see the shoulders start having a better posture. We see the attitudes start improving, and people have a reason and a purpose to get up and go.
Yes.
So we do think there is a direct correlation with our physical health. So we encourage our team members and family members to do that. And again, it goes into the design of our physical plant, and it goes into our programming as well.
That's wonderful. In 20 years, Solinity will be where?
This is probably my most frustrating question to answer, and I'll tell you why. I have this unquenchable ability to constantly be moving forward. My goal threshold is never really satisfied because when I get there, I'm looking to set the next goal. So what I, as a developer, owner, operator, get asked often is, how many communities do you think you'll have in the next 10 years? And I say, you know what? That is not really my focus. My focus is on a few areas that all center around what is the best experience I can provide to people? How can I add value to people? If that is improving the quality of care in our communities and to our team members continuously, if there's a way to measure that at a goal of 20 years from now, so be it. But it's got to be a constant moving forward. And I think in life as humans, we're given this ability that we probably never, ever reach our fullest potential because it's unlimited.
Right.
And it's limited what we can do together. So I think as an industry and as people, we're always better together. And as you know, in this country, we need to do a lot of that better. So
Sure.
I'm hoping that Solinity can help to influence that. And if I can be a little part of a spark that helps to drive that, I think Solinity, as with a lot of companies that are out there, it's an unlimited potential. So I hope I didn't deflect directly answer
No.
your question, but I don't know how to quantify that.
Sure. Well, the bottom line is you guys are planning to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, we hope so, and I believe everybody is given a unique influence in their lives, and our responsibility is, regardless of our influence, big or small, to positively impact everyone in the circle of our influence.
Sure.
So we would love to grow our influence so we have the ability to impact more.
Absolutely. Well, and I know it's important because, our seniors oftentimes are, in some cases, unfortunately, an afterthought for many things. And we get asked ourselves quite often, will Medicare pay for home care? Things like that. And we say, just like your assisted living facilities, there's only certain options for outside funding. Otherwise, you're going to be private paying. And, hopefully I would like to see in our industry in the next 20 years to see more incremental growth towards Medicare helping to assist to pay for some of the private care, especially as the numbers with the baby boomers exploding, those numbers are only going to keep going up. And there are only so many facilities and things to help provide that care for them. And, hopefully with, companies like yours and, people with good motives and trying to make good positive impacts, we'll continue to see, a trend towards more support for the aging population.
I think so, Lance. Really appreciate what you guys do and what you stand for. And I think if we continue to do the right thing for people and keep the person at the center of our programming and our services, then we'll get where we need to be.
Absolutely. Josh, I want to thank you for taking time out to be with us today and wish you guys all the best. And hopefully we can do this again. You can tell us about one of your new projects you're involved with. And I saw you started the Pedal for Alzheimer's because of, the wonderful Hall of Fame coach, Pat Summitt, down there in Tennessee. When I think of Tennessee, I always think of my favorite, and that's Peyton Manning, of course. Even though we're here in Michigan, I'm a Peyton Manning, not a Tom Brady guy. Some people razz me for that, but yeah, that'd be great. We look forward to speaking with you guys again in the future. And thank you so much for taking time out to be with us today.
Thank you, Lance. It's been a pleasure.
All right. You have a good day. Thanks, Josh. We want to thank Josh and all of you for joining us here at All Home Care Matters. If you want to learn more about Josh and his company, Solinity, visit them at solinity.com, and the information will also be available in our show notes. All Home Care Matters is here for you and to help families as they navigate long-term care issues. We invite you to please visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there is a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. We hope you will join us next time on All Home Care Matters, where we're going to be discussing safely celebrating Christmas in 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.